Bonjour à vous. Très heureux d'être ici. Voilà, le sujet du jour, c'est TV égale total video. Alors pourquoi, why this title? Why TV is equal to total video? Simply because we believe that the good old life of a TV set, being confused with the medium, is probably over. Now we believe that TV programming needs to be distributed overall on all multiple platforms. And you will see that the reason behind this is a very simple one. It's basically a technology breakthrough which happened over the last probably 10 to 15 years with the, I would say, the advance of the internet technology. And I just took one very simple example to kind of feature you that, is the number of 900 million 4G enabled smartphones which are currently sold per year overall in the world. If you compare this to the TV sets, the so-called smart TVs that you have installed, you've got around 600 million thereof. So what you see is that TV is not anyway and anymore in the living room. It's actually everywhere. When you are actually traveling, when you're out of home, it basically accompanies you. The fact that the number of devices actually exploded in the last few years also mean that, and it's fairly obvious to state, that the number of channels also exploded. And here you've got a very simple timeline showing you since the good old days of the, I would say, advance of television, 1950s to now, what it meant in terms of output and bandwidth of number of channels, which is obviously massive. Some of these channels are good old free-to-air networks, some of them are cable channels, some of them are OTT, and you've got a whole mix now of channels being able to carry content to the viewers. And the fact that you've got more channels available also means that, and again, it's an obvious fact, that you've got more content available. Content is obviously a very vague word. It's a buzzword. It ultimately means whatever you like to watch on a screen, whether it's news, sports, entertainment, comedy, drama, short-form video, you name it. This is what we now call television in the good old sense. And obviously the fact that you've got more content available to you also means that we, as providers, that's true for RTL Group, I guess it's true for any provider, also means that there is a huge battle for attention. Because the time that you spend in front of your screen, whatever the screen is fairly limited. And therefore, we need to make sure that we, as media groups, place the best programming available to actually seduce your attention, for you to spend time with us. And that means battle for attention on short form, typically what you have as feature on this slide. I think the VidCon in the US is an icon of this short form video appeal for the millennials, where you see that 15, 20,000 youngsters, the below 20s, millennials, actually watching now more short form than long form. And it goes up to drama, heavy drama, that we also produce and we try also to convey as key programming to our viewers. We believe that there's a new world where content explodes, hits are still possible. The problem now is the definition of hits. If you recall, 30 years ago, major hits on TV were doing 30, 50 million viewers on American television. Now, if you're lucky, if you take, for example, Idols or The Voice in the US, you reach 10 million. So you've got a reduction in the absolute volume of viewers that you can reach into one live programmings. And therefore, we also believe that in the next few years, you will have a new normal in what we call a hit. We believe that hits are still possible, definitely, but they will be smaller in size, simply, and that's, I would say, a direct consequence of the fragmentation of all the devices. You will see that these hits will reach less viewers. It doesn't mean that they won't be strong. It doesn't mean that they are not traveling worldwide, but still, it will be tougher to actually get them refinanced, simply because you reach less viewers. And therefore, you will need to have global scale to make sure that the hits that you produce as a broadcaster or as a producer actually travel internationally. But you'll tell me, oh, this is fine, fully understood, but what does it mean for media groups? Well, I took here, I would say, a very simple chart to try to describe what is our value chain. And I'm sure you will recognize this. You've seen these charts 100 times in all kind of books. In linear television, you have content and content providers. I featured here Disney and Fremantle. You've got aggregators, typically broadcasters, either networks or cable networks. And then you've got distributors. They used to be cable and DTH for most of them. What you see now is a kind of what I would call an underworld ecosystem coming in, to use a consultant's buzzword, of non-linear television, where this value chain is simply replicated exactly in the same manner. Again, you have got content production, you have got aggregation, and you've got distribution. The difficulty that we're all facing is that you see different names here. If you start with content, you see that the creators are now absolutely free to handle. You have got names here of individual creators on YouTube or on television that you've never heard before. Multi-channel networks are now surfing on the YouTube wave, aggregating this content in various forms. And finally, you have got OTT distributors. You know, of course, the YouTube, Facebook, Dailymotion, or Vessel of this world. This is precisely the reason why, when we saw this new value chain coming in, that 4 years ago, we decided to heavily invest into this new world. The first investment that we did was in multi-channel networks, and there we decided to actually go west, go in the US, simply because we believe that the US are always at the forefront of audiovisual developments, and they've got scale in terms of viewers and refinancing that in Europe we've got more difficulties to have. And that's why we invested into a channel called Broadband TV. You probably never heard, or some of you never heard about Broadband TV because they don't appear necessarily on YouTube as a B2C brand. But be aware that behind the YouTube mass of videos, you have great aggregators who replicate the TV model, trying to assemble specific verticals, specific themes. And Broadband TV is actually the worldwide leader in this one. Just an example, Lean On, Major Lazer, actually reached 1 billion views. They didn't reach 1 billion views on YouTube just like that, simply because you had an aggregator helping them to optimize their audience flow through thumbnails and so on. And this is typically the job of broadband to achieve. So we're very proud that actually in the last 2 months, Broadband TV is now ranked by Comscore #1 worldwide. We're actually ahead of Maker, ahead of Fullscreen. And this is obviously something which puts us on the map in terms of short-form video distribution. Besides YouTube, we also ask ourselves, okay, how can we make sure that in the same manner as in television, you've got general entertainment networks, how can we make sure that we've got also vertical networks, theme channels? And that's led us to the second investment that we did in another company called Stylehaul, which is basically a fashion, beauty, and lifestyle expert. Again, YouTube aggregator, 30% market share worldwide, overall in the brand. Again, not a B2C brand, a brand that you don't see as a consumer, although this might come at some point. Same for broadband. But here, very clearly, highly specialized, highly appealing to advertisers, because as you all know, fashion and beauty is a key advertising segment. All this combined as well with all the short-form and long-form streaming that we're doing on our, I would say, more traditional linear channels in replay and catch-up, leads to the fact that if I just look at January, February, we'll generate 11 billion views per month overall for RTL Group. So very good result, very happy about it. But the question is, long-term, how are we make sure that we're going to monetize this amount? Now, one thing is actually to produce and aggregate formats and programming. The other thing is actually to sell them. And the second difficulty that we've been facing as a media group is technology. Because as you know, as traditional broadcasters, technology, okay, is something we understand. We used to have our signals distributed to platforms. But selling, advertising online, I would say in an automated manner, as it happens now in programmatic, is something that we were not familiar with. And that's why we took the second step in our digital strategy, which was to invest into programmatic online platforms. And there again, we took, I would say, the leap of faith, because we decided to invest into a company probably never heard about a couple of years ago, called SpotX, based in Denver, Colorado. These guys are dealing with 10 billion ad calls per day, i.e. you have got 10 billion incoming data requests to the platform to try to place a specific advertising on your computer while you're opening a URL and you see this pop-up advertising. All this is done in milliseconds through these automated platforms. And actually, you've got now, I would say worldwide, probably 4 major platforms to organize this. I call them the NASDAQ of online advertising. Obviously, you've got Google. This is proprietary platform. You've got Facebook, who bought LiveRail. And then you've got SpotX as number 3. You've got a couple of others like AdaptTV and so on. So technology now becomes a key component of our business, and we need to learn this. And obviously, the quickest way to learn it at some point, or in some instances, is basically to acquire the assets, the skills, the technology that others develop. That brought us to do that. Now, why is it important for us to actually understand and master this technology? Simply because we believe that there is a pyramid effect. If you look at the content that is currently broadcast on television, on online, we believe that there are 3 tiers of programming. The first one is what we call premium. It's typically long form television, more costly to produce. This is still, and this will be I'm sure in the foreseeable future, sold directly to advertisers through agency deals, the way we call them. Then there is a second tier content, which is, I would say, the long tail, typically cable channels, non-prime time, that you can't really sell easily. That's the second category. And the third category is a massive one in terms of volume. That's the base of the pyramid. It's low tier content, although the word low might induce that it's lesser quality. No, it's simply shorter form. Used to be low quality, now much better, and it will improve over time. And there, the volumes of inventory available to actually sell to advertisers online is absolutely massive. And obviously, the more content is put on air, the lower the prices are. That's why you have this pyramid between price and volumes. We used to be super strong, and we are super strong in the red box or in the red triangle. Now, through the acquisitions that we made in MCNs and in programmatic, we feel much stronger in the 2 other strands of this pyramid. And if you look at the 2015 results of RTL Group, actually a record year, by the way, which we really like, out of the 6 billion euro revenues that we generated, 500 million are actually video digital only. So I'm not talking about e-commerce, I'm not talking about other things, I'm just talking about digital video, 500 million. Is it good? Yeah, it's fine, we're happy. We say that we'll reach 10%. In the next 3 years, I believe that we're going to hit that mark relatively quickly. Is it enough? No, simply because we are now in a state of evolution. As we all know, millennials consume differently, and the older they get, the quicker they might change their consuming patterns of television. That's why we believe that this ratio of 8% will increase over time. That's something that we're sure of. The other thing we are sure of, and you see it on that chart, is that you need, as a group, not only to be a broadcaster, but also vertically integrated into content production. That's why, for us, this association between broadcast, our TV broadcasters, and Fremantle is so important for us. And I believe that, again, we're replicating what the US networks have been doing over time. ABC buying Disney, News Corp buying Fox. You have seen CBS also vertically integrating, or NBC buying Universal. In a way, we are doing the same. And the beauty of it is that, in a way, a group like ours is hedging his bet in making sure that when the number of devices multiply, Fremantle is able to sell to all these new platforms. I can tell you that's the theory. It's not always easy to sell to these new platforms because they are very greedy, and obviously they want to make sure that they've got the full exclusivity of all rights worldwide for a certain period, and it's not always easy to sell them under these premises. Now, coming back to strategy, I gave you kind of the various steps that we put in place to execute our strategy. By the way, this is a long march. We are just at the beginning of this march, in my view, within the media industry. We have defined for ourselves, Anke Schefferkot and my co-CEO and myself, kind of 3 pillars to build upon. The first one is an obvious one. We've been there since nearly 100 years. It's radio broadcast, it's TV broadcast, fantastic business, highly cash generative, super strong business, and still growing against all odds. The second pillar is content, and again, this is Fremantle, but this is also all the production entities that we have within the broadcasters who produce news, magazines, and other shows. A key, in my view, component of a media group. And the third one is our digital hub that we've been building over time, in which we fold in the SpotX, Stylehaul, and Broadband TV of this world. We need to grow that pie. That pie looks the same here on this chart as the two others, but it's not. It's much tinier, and this is where we spend at corporate and at the headquarters a lot of time to try to build. And obviously this chart is a bit misleading because it gives you the feeling that each of these pillars work independently. They don't. You see a lot of links, a lot of interactions between these three blocks. Digital, for example, if I take SpotX, we started SpotX in the US. We are now rolling them into Germany, into Europe, into Holland, just to make sure that the existing business benefits from these new trends. And to come back to my initial statement, all this is about video. We believe that our core business is producing, aggregating, distributing, monetizing video. We are not doing e-commerce. We are not doing other stuff. We are just focused as RTL Group on the core business, which is all about video. How do we make sure that we accompany our viewers into this new video usage? This is what it is all about. But, and there is a big but, we're going to discuss about it in a few minutes, we've got a challenge. And our challenge is, I would say, a cultural challenge in the sense that when RTL was founded, it was very much, I would say, geared toward local tastes. And local tastes, don't get me wrong, are still super important and will remain so. That's why local business will remain absolutely important. But of course, we make sure that in Germany we are German, in France we are French, in Croatia we are Croatian, in Hungary we are Hungarian. Sometimes not easy to be Hungarian, politically speaking at least, but at least we manage. And this is what made RTL really what it is, a very strong DNA. The difficulty that we're facing is now this kind of global cut, this verticalization of the business, where you see that global players are playing against us. It's not only about M6 and TF1 of ProSieben against RTL or RTL TVI in Belgium against RTBF, but it's about Facebook, YouTube, MCNs coming in, rolling out of California, trying to grab our business. And this means new set of minds for us, because we can't simply reason within this Schengen frontiers of our business. We need to make sure that we acquire scale, as I indicated, we acquire new technology, and also that we acquire, I would say, the new talents, the people who will allow us to develop the business. As we speak now, we've got around 1,000 young, savvy digital executives in the US helping us out in our digital endeavors. I can tell you, we feel much more comfortable today than we felt a couple of years ago, not having these new tools and skill sets. But this challenge is on the way. It will take us probably 10 years to master it, but at least it's clearly individualized, and we'll try to get it done. I'd like to finish this note on what I would call the European challenge, and this is more of a, I would say, the political speech. Why is the political speech important? Simply because the new directive, European directive, Television Without Frontier, will be rediscussed actually in the months to come. In June, there will be a new, I believe, proposal made by the EU. And I believe that it's super important to make sure that this directive is properly drafted for European media groups. Because if it's not, we'll be super regulated still, whereas all the newcomers that I mentioned will simply flow out of the US or other regions of the world with zero regulation. And that could be really a danger, we believe, for the future of our business. So we need to make sure that the EU understands this, not only for the broadcasting side of the business, but also for the production side. Because it's very good to hear that Orange is the New Black is a fantastic new series. This being said, we believe that in Europe, we've got top producers. I just take UFA as an example with Deutschland 83 now exported into 20 countries. You've got a lot of top programming. It's true for Versailles. I mean, all these were mentioned already, I believe, in previous speeches. We need to make sure that all these formats and programming have also export potentials and can be exported not only in Europe and worldwide. And that's why we need as well the help at some point of the regulators to fix that. So that summarizes, I would say, the more formal presentation. And now we're going to move, I guess, to Q&A. Thank you.
Guillaume, thank you very much for that. And let's get straight into it. Before I ask you about some of your challenges that you kind of highlighted a little bit there, just sort of broaden out and talk about the industry. What does this global industry look like in 5 years' time? Who are the winners? Who are the losers? What does it look like? What's your vision, 5 years, industry?
Well, I think we can have only one certainty, is that content will still explode. What you see now is probably just a fraction of all the videos which will be available on any device in the next 5 years. That's, I would say, the certainty.
Right.
Now, the question is, who will win in there? I think you will probably need 3 things. First of all, it's all about programming. It's because ultimately you can discuss, years and years about internet, OTT, new forms of distribution, but you need to do programming which appeals to the viewers. That is and will remain the constant. Okay. So we need this, that's for sure. That's why I was talking about vertical integration. It's damn important to be at the source of content or origination and programming. That's, in my view, really key. The second is scale, because we see that when you want to create all these new efforts, you need scale, and just operating into one country is simply not enough. That's why I believe that our group is well positioned, because we are pan-European, but the pan-European is not enough. You will probably need more in the next few years. And the third one is globalization. You need to be global in the way you approach things. And it's not easy always to have, again, well, back to this cultural challenge. It's not always easy to be global.
Okay, we'll come back to that. But programming scale globalization. Okay, one of the things that CEOs, that's not different from what I would hear, thankfully, from a number of CEOs. But the big issue that many CEOs are dealing with, they have a clear vision of where they want to get to, and the issue is legacy structures. How are you dealing with some of those legacy structures at RTL?
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks God, we've got teams and we've got CEOs in each single business unit and country which you operate who are flexible in the way they approach things. Simply because we're talking about revolution, but don't forget that internet didn't exist 20 years ago, DTH didn't exist 25 years ago. So I think our executives are already used to change. And I think that's the first prerequisite that you need. The second is that you need a right balance between, I would say, local, national initiatives and corporate. Because when you think about it, if you're the CEO of, let's say, France, Nicolas Taverneau, his primary concern is basically what programming will work next week. Am I making sure that Top Chef is doing 3 million viewers and not 2.5? Otherwise, I've got a blip in my advertising revenues. So in terms of time allocation, our executives are probably 80 operational, 20 strategy. The good news about corporate is that we are just vice versa. We're actually 20% operational because we've got great CEOs to run the show. And we spend a lot of time thinking about how to structure the future. And that's why we took actually all these new initiatives in investment at corporate level, SpotX, Stylehaul, Broadband, and so on. That's why you need to have this mix, I would say, of talents within the group. The one who think more, future, corporate, with, I would say, the reality sense of the executives. I think the third formula is probably, and again, it's not easy, and I'm sure all the other people that you interviewed told us, what we're trying to do is what we call virtual teams. I don't know whether you read the book Kotler, Virtual Teams, and Accelerate. Looks great on paper, but what you need to do is to assemble a team extracted from your current organization. That's what our digital hub is actually doing. It's a resource team. And try to give to this team a dedicated mission, trying to break barriers And I can tell you it's not easy to break barriers, as you know, because there are, leading barriers. You've got, hierarchy barriers.
Yes.
You've got financial ones. You've got budget ones.
Yes.
But still, it's probably the only way to move things ahead is to try to break these barriers.
Okay, so change is a constant, and breaking barriers is now part of the rule of operation. But if you were to look at, you talk about the talent within your organization. If you were to say, I wish I had more skills in X area or Y area, where, from an RTL Group viewpoint, where do you wish you had more skills? And what type of skills are they?
Look, I would state the obvious. Programming is and will remain the core of our business.
Okay.
So we need to make sure before acquiring new skills that we're executing properly on discovering the next big show for our broadcasters.
Yeah.
That's for sure the key skill of the group, no doubt. This being said, the most difficult skills for us to acquire is probably what we call the ad tech stack, i.e. how do you make sure that you monetize along the value chain, and all these buzz names, the SSPs, the DSPs, all these new platforms popping in, trying to intermediate online advertising. This is a skill which is very difficult to actually develop in-house, and that you need to acquire. And even if you wanted to acquire it, it's not easy to have the full stack from, I would say, the advertiser to start with up to the publisher of the content. Very difficult.
It's interesting because obviously you have been acquiring skills, not just organically, but through acquisitions. You've created the digital hub, and you've set that up as a separate organization. But at what point does the digital hub become the business, or do you integrate within the existing businesses?
Yes.
Where does digital hub end up in 5 years' time? What's the future of that?
Look, I truly believe that it's an intertwined exercise. So we call it the digital hub, but still, as we speak, you've got so many interactions between this pillar and all the others that it's kind of difficult to distinguish it from a P&L point of view.
Right.
But I think that in terms of mind focus, it's important to kind of crystallize this notion of hub and dedicated team and resources to do it. I believe that this effort will probably take an additional 3 to 5 years, and afterwards maybe things will fall differently within the organization. But we're still in this, I would call it, early building phase of digital, and we need to keep that focus.
Right, and hence keeping it separate.
Yes, separate, but let me just give you one other example which strikes me now. We are talking about MCNs. While we were negotiating the acquisition of Broadband TV in Canada at corporate level, Fremantle were discussing exactly at the same time the acquisition of DiviMove, which is a European MCN, probably #1 now, based in Germany. And basically, these two deals were running in parallel. If you look at theory, you could have said, well, you need to choose, where do we put this? Shall we put that asset there and there? Ultimately, we said, let's go. Let's grab the business. We'll get organized afterwards. Let's simply run after the good quality assets. Organization will come afterwards.
Right.
So there is also some element of land grabbing there. Everything can be organized, I would say, nicely and seamlessly. In the same manner, and I always remind this to my team, if you look at Germany, France, and all the territories, at the beginning of TV, we were not organized the way we are now. Now we are super lean. We've got, I would say, one structure and all channels folding in very nicely. If you just take Germany, and I see kind of German colleagues here, Vox was started with 4 different shareholders, was super difficult, was not owned by RTL at that time. RTL2 ran into that direction. RTL Plus was really at the core of our business. Super RTL didn't even exist. That was 25 years ago. Now, I would say we have a well-oiled and organized system. That's true for Germany and other countries. It was not like that 20 years ago. So it's a matter of time.
Do you think, though, that there is a healthy tension between the... I mean, you're a believer that some element of tension within an organization delivers better results, or is it just, great, harmonious love fest? Where do you sit on that?
No, love fest. My colleagues will testify. Love fest is not easy because, of course, you've got tensions in the system. Yeah. It's inevitable in any organization. But at least I believe that there is a clear view and that's very important, about where the group wants to head towards. I think that the strategy roadmap is clearly defined. At least we know where we want to go. How to get there is not always easy, but at least up to now, in the last X years, I think we've been fairly consistent in delivering that path.
Final question, on your final slide, or almost final slide, you had that sort of that axis of global and local. Now again, I've heard CEOs talk about globalization as far back as, sort of 15 years ago. How local do you need to be successful as a global media company? Look,
the answer lies in the programming. If you look now at the mix between our local programming versus, I would say, US, to make it simple, licensed programs, you are in some cases into a 90-10, 90 local, 10 US. I would say the lowest is probably 60-40. And that gives you, I think, the balance of how local you need to be. I believe that local is a constant and will always remain a constant. By the way, this is one of our strengths. We understand our local viewers for sure.
And so do you think you will go more local over the years, or so where are you on that journey?
Yeah, well, difficult. I think we've probably reached, I would say, the optimum in terms of global, local. I do not see us. The light is fading. We'll be in the dark in a few minutes.
It's the hint.
Yeah, or seconds.
The Oscars, they play music. Here we get lights.
Exactly. No, I think we've reached some sort of optimum. I would say, to make it simple, probably a 70-30. To make it simple is probably the right mix. The good news about global is that I think, in particular in Europe, that more and more programs have got a capacity to be exported, which was, as you know, not the case 20 years ago. We're still talking about the Euro puddings. I think these times are over. We are now in high-quality content from Europe, which is exported.
Guillaume, the lights told us time's out.
We need to go.
Please join me in thanking Guillaume de Posch for his views of the world and RTL.
Thank you.
Thanks, Guillaume.